And we are rolling. I am back, or we are back, I should say, Carlisle and I. This is an episode of Let Me Ask My Mom. I get so excited when I get you, Car. So thank you for joining us. And thank you, Matt and Jude. Jude has been here before, and she is one of those amazing ladies that went viral for switching sides, I guess you could say politically, but really, when it comes down to it, it really is just a fight against evil in my mind. And I think you made a very good choice, and I absolutely love your videos. Every time I see one, I'm just like, she's just so smart and she does such a great job, putting things together. It's just incredible. And I know that I think that's how you and Matt met. So since everyone's already met you, if we could just kind of introduce Matt, if you could just tell us a little bit about you and, how you two met, that would be awesome.
Yeah, my name is Matt Rey. I'm a 31-year-old trans man who lives in the US with. I'm a 31-year-old trans man who lives in the US with my wife. I first saw her video go viral, and I really wanted to do a live with her. That's literally what happened. And I kept trying to reach out on Instagram, but it was impossible to get hold of her. And then I found her email, and she responded straight away. And we had a chat, and then we had another chat, and then it led to us talking privately, and now we're married.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's so awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so tell us, Matt, what you do right now.
I am the Western Regional Leader for Gays Against Groomers. We are all speaking up against the indoctrination, sexualization, and medicalization of children in the name of gender-affirming care. What is taking place right now is so evil, and I've had a lot of health issues with transitioning myself. And so the way I learn to cope with it is I have to live with the consequences I've done to my own body. But if I can protect children from going through the same, I will do all I can.
I would love to hear a little bit more about that. Carly, I'm going to let you start out with some questions because I know you had some specific things that you wanted to chat about.
Okay, yeah, I thought this was so interesting because I know a lot about, I've been doing a lot of studying on thyroid health and hormones to try and fix my own hormones. And I know that a lot of people in the holistic health world see estrogen as a stress hormone. So like a lot of women who struggle with PMS and PCOS, a lot of them have estrogen dominance issues. And a lot of it is trying to lower estrogen because in a sense, sometimes estrogen can steal oxygen from the cells. And I actually sent an email to this doctor who I didn't know he died like a few days after. I was like, oh gosh, I hope this is not the last email he read, because I was like, what would be the long-term effects of someone who's born a man taking estrogen every day for a long period of time, because estrogen can be seen as a stress hormone and it can cause, like we all know that birth control can cause these types of things. And if you're taking pure forms of estrogen, and I fully believe in medical consent because it's totally different if you know what you're getting yourself into and you know the risks, but especially to a child, that just seems like mind-boggling. It's just, I never would have imagined we were ever in a situation where this is something we have to argue with people about, because I feel like we should all agree that children, especially in today's world with social media and things like that, they're mentally and physically vulnerable. And it feels like this is just another way that the medical establishment is taking advantage of them and then telling their parents that, oh, would you rather a dead son or a trans daughter? Like that to me is like the most manipulative spirit at its core, because most parents are really well-meaning when they go into this, I would think. I mean, I think like we see, and it's just interesting. So I wanted to ask you specifically, Matt, was there any discussion of long-term risks when you started transitioning, or did you read the inserts? Did doctors talk to you? What was the first part of that like?
I wasn't given the information I should have been given. When I look back, I went to it. I had my journey in the UK, and the clinic I went to was Tavistock, which actually just got shut down for being unsafe for children. And so I was referred there by my general practitioner. And the first appointment, I had quite a wait for that because it was the only clinic in the UK. And I finally had the appointment, and they sat me down and they said, okay, how do you feel? And obviously my response was to say, I feel like I'm a man at the time, you know? And when I look back, it was very affirm. There was no asking me why I felt like that. There was no explaining that it could be other things. And when it came to my diagnosis for hormones, I was actually lied to. They gave me a blood test, and I went to that next appointment expecting just to find out if my body could handle testosterone or not. They then turned around to me without going into details about what my blood test results came back as and said, hey, so your T levels are actually 10 times higher than a biological female should have. This means you're intersex. Well, I've since found out that's not true. You cannot give a DSD diagnosis on just hormone levels. I could have actually had polycystic ovary syndrome, because that can actually cause higher T levels. They never informed me about any of this. Their response was, we have a biological female here who has naturally high T levels. Let's pump that female with more testosterone. And I have had, I came off testosterone around 4 months ago now, because I was suffering from really bad heart palpitations, which I'm still suffering from now. Actually, I'm suffering more since I came off the testosterone, because now my body is completely out of whack. And it makes sense. If I already had high T levels, why would you inject me with more testosterone? It's medical malpractice, and I'm seeing it happening everywhere. And with the situation with Tavistock being shut down, I'm honestly not surprised, because when I first started going to my appointments, there was only 1 or 2 people in the waiting room other than me. And by the end of it, when I went to my last appointment to be signed off for my top surgery, the waiting room was full of young people.
And how many years apart was that?
I would say, okay, so I started testosterone at 26 and I was almost 30 when, so about 4 years.
Like 4 years. Yeah. That's similar to the article that Carlisle just sent me. What was that lady's name? Jamie Reed. Did you guys see that?
I think so. The whistleblower
from Washington.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was saying that it was in these 4 years that they went from maybe having 10 to by the time she had left in 4 years, there was 500.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's the same span of years, because it's just exploded. And it's horrific, like the way that people are trying to discredit her and just be like, she doesn't really know what she's talking about. She works there. She sees these people. She has these experiences. She's literally looking these people in the eye and noticing the patterns and what's going on. How can you say she doesn't know what she's talking about?
Yeah, it's just gaslighting. It's a really incredible article. It was what was it?
I'll post it.
Free press or yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to give credit to whoever it was that wrote it. It was really good.
Awesome.
And I pulled I first of all, I want to say to you, Matt, that I'm really sorry that this happened to you, but I love that you've championed it rather than becoming a victim and are literally impacting globally. And so it kind of makes me tear up. Like I'm so impressed and so thankful that people like you guys exist, because if you don't speak up and you come from that place, then these kids don't have, any advocates, and they need a voice. I'm a big believer in letting everyone be their own advocate, but not children. They don't have the luggage. They don't have the experience to carry it. So I just wanted to say that, but I also had pulled a quote, and I thought this was really interesting, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying. Given their expertise, this is Jamie Reed talking about how she was somebody there to help process and onboard and be an administrator, but she just assumed that the Centers for Doctors and Therapists this is what she said, given their expertise, I assumed that abundant evidence backed this consensus. And that's missing.
Yeah.
Why do you think Tavistock closed, in your opinion?
I think, well, when I look back to the amount of young people I saw, they had a rule in the UK where you had to be 18 to undergo medicalization, but with the way it's been shut down, all I can imagine is that they must have been giving out puberty blockers. That's all I can think. And they are lying so much about puberty blockers. You cannot simply just pause your puberty, the health issues that puberty blockers actually cause. And it's becoming such a dangerous game. I mean, YouTube now has been actually advertising puberty blocker commercials to young kids who use the app.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And the way they described it was a traffic light system and made it sound like you could literally just pause.
Which is so crazy, because I feel like if you're a kid of any gender, pausing puberty sounds pretty nice. You're like, well, I don't have to deal with all this right now. Like, okay, great, you know.
Yeah, I got my period when I was 11 and it was terrifying, but you know, my mom had prepared me for it, which is, I guess, something some parents don't always do. Kind of scary to think about, but that's what she told me. She was like, my mom's mother never explained this to her, so when she got her period, she thought she was dying.
Oh my gosh.
You know, so it was like, she's
that
like,
would
I
be
have
scary.
to tell you this. And she's like, I have to tell you this. This is what happens. It is what it is. This is what your body does. You need to know that. And for these people to just start blatantly disregarding this fact that this is what women go through, this is what we fought hard to earn our space, to earn our seat, and this is, in some cultures, we were forced to go sit in a hut for a week, you know, like we're ostracized for it. So you can't invade that space and act like that's just totally 100% okay, because this is what we go through. And I'm seeing these trans people like trying to imitate it with like tomato paste packets in their underwear and stuff, and I'm like, that's just delusional. That is so twisted. I don't understand this it's literally hit fiction at this point, and to put this on children too and just be like, you can be whatever you want, it's a lie. It's just a lie. And the adults are only doing this. A lot of them are scared they're going to lose their job. It's become this whole agenda. It's all funneling down through like the Pritzkers, and some of the top 1% are funding these delusions because they want Big Pharma to get more money. And it's absolutely disgusting, and it will damage our future generation. Like, the backlash to this is going to be huge.
Oh, Mom, you're muted.
All right. I was trying to make sure there was no background noise. And one of the things that I like doing is looking at like the signature patterns. And so I've noticed a few, and I would love for you guys to add to maybe some of the ones that I've missed to fill in some holes, because you guys are like literally on the front lines. But one of the things that they do is they establish the game board. So you're living your life, and all of a sudden something slides under you, and you're a piece or a pawn in this game. And so we have to be able to recognize when a premise has been thrown under us, and to be able to resist it immediately, instead of I think so many people get knocked off center because they're like, whoa, new game board. I got to figure out how to do this. You know, I don't want to offend people. I don't want to do this. The next thing that they do is they redefine words, or they redefine meanings.
That's driving me nuts.
They use medicine and science as the pinnacle. It's almost religious. And then they confuse parents with this fear of annihilation of their child. Right. Which I think is one of the biggest things is, you know, and it's the same thing that happens with drugs with children, you know, like parents are so afraid that their kids are going to kill themselves. They keep enabling them to continue to do the drugs. Right. And so I think that's another one. I also think there's the parents, and actually a lot of people don't have their authority. So they're looking outside of themselves for validation. And I think that's a huge piece of it, is that people haven't matured. And that was, you know, that was the few that I could think of. Are there any other patterns that you notice that are insidious in that same respect?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, especially about the people who haven't matured enough, because one thing I say is, when I look back to myself when I was a teenager, or even before that, when I used to bring up to my mum and my dad why I felt the way I did, they would tell me, you know, oh, look, you could just grow up to be a tomboy. You could end up being a lesbian. And at the time, I thought it was like the Wicked Witch of the West, you know, like, you're horrible. You won't let me. But at the same time, was I allowed to cut my hair short? Yes. Was I allowed to dress how I wanted? Yes. Was that the best parenting I could have actually asked for? Yes. And so a lot of these radical trans activists, I think, honestly, when they talk about empowering trans kids, they are still listening to that inner child they had back then who didn't like being told no. They haven't grown up and matured in a respect where they think, hold on a minute, I went through these surgeries and the hormones, even if it turned out all right for them. Yeah. They're still going to have some kind of hardship along the way. This process is not rainbows and butterflies, you know, regardless. So what they should be doing is taking a step back and thinking, wait, the brain doesn't finish developing till 25. Their bodies aren't developed. Should they wait? Yes.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to say is I've recently heard that the brain age development age is like kind of more or less a myth, and we're always learning and developing along the way. But that's even more reason to hold off.
Dude. I agree with that.
More reason to hold off on that, because you could feel differently from age 25 to 35, even as an adult. Like this impacts you forever, and they are lying about the fact that you're doing this your whole life. You're becoming a permanent medical patient. It's a serious decision. It's not a decision that children should be making. And like Matt said, these people are acting from their trauma. They are frozen in this time where they're so hurt and they don't know how to deal with it. So, and from their perspective, they want other people to avoid that hurt. So they're implanting this rebellion against parents because that's what they wanted to do, and they never got over it. Yeah. So they're just making their problems everybody else's problem. And it's very, very damaging. And to these kids who, you know, when you're like you said, they think pausing puberty sounds great, you know, because they don't know how to deal with this stuff. They don't want to listen to their parents. They want to get their way. And so they're listening to these other people who have the same mentality and never grew out of it. So there's this wedge being put in between the kids and parents. It's very
that is another one. Yes.
It separates them from their parents or family.
And that's a big part of like basically mass scale grooming. I mean, they either establish a relationship with the parents because the parents want their kid to, you know, be happy, so they're manipulating them, or they're driving a wedge between the parents who know better and know what they want for their children because they want to make their child a victim.
So Matt, I have another question. Looking back, can you also see that there was any type of grooming in school or culturally in any of the areas that you were hanging out?
I think you were pretty early.
Yeah, I was pretty early. Honestly, this stuff has come on really strong. When I was in school, some people still even saw being gay as taboo. I remember there was a girl who came out as a lesbian in my school, and she got bullied, and one of the main people who bullied her ended up being a lesbian. You know, like there was a lot of that. So like in the last few years, there's been this huge floodgates are just opening. And we're seeing this, like the evidence of it now, like people like Chloe Cole and stuff who have come forward, these minors who have actually suffered. She's happy with her transition.
Yeah, right.
She claims to be anyway, but like we've got people who are speaking out, and just, you think this is bad, just wait for like 5 years down the line, because it's going to be so much worse. And the really sad thing about it is a lot of these parents aren't doing it to look progressive. They're doing it because the media and all these organizations around them are saying what you said earlier. Do you want a dead child or a trans child, and all of this? And some people are even getting their children taken off of them. And what it's going to lead to is this huge response of, in the future, loads of minors who now turn adults resenting their parents because they enabled them.
And I don't blame them, actually. You know, like I said, I don't think the parents have matured enough to handle this serious topic. I literally coach people for a living, and I have so many people who are you know, managers or leading, you know, thousands of people that are still coming to me going, how do I fire this person in a way that, you know, is nice, and I think, wow, that person got to this level, and they can't even see that firing that person is a good thing to do for them if they're not qualified,
Right.
and that's how people learn. And so this fear of offending, I think that's another one, actually. That's another one I would put on the list, is that that I think there's so many good people that don't want to offend someone. And so that is being twisted in a way that's unhealthy.
It's
Absolutely.
manipulative in the way that using someone's empathy or using a parent's empathy for something bad is like one of the highest forms of manipulation, because you're tapping into the good parts of people that want to protect people and uplift people and accept people for who they are. And it's so interesting because I feel like you're right. It really, all this stuff started to blow up out of nowhere. And I used to live in Los Angeles, and I used to work in like the heart of the gayborhood of West Hollywood. And that's what they called it. It was like where all the gay clubs were. And I used to park my car at the public library because it was cheaper parking. And the public library had these giant signs for drag queen story hour. And I was so out of the loop of the culture where then I was just doing my life, having fun, doing whatever. And I remember walking by that, and I didn't really think that much about it, but I was like, I don't know. I was like, that's a little weird. Like, because it was like ages 4 to 6 or something like that. And I was like, I'm sure this would only happen in West Hollywood, like where all the drag queens are. I'm like, this seems like it'll stay contained here. And then it wasn't until all the weird drag queen story hour stuff has come to the rest of the United States that I was like, wow, it's crazy to think that. And that was 2018. And I never thought about it twice. I looked at it and was like, okay, yeah. I was like, that's weird. But I was like, am I being judgmental? Am I being weird? But I was like, I don't know. It just something didn't sit. I mean, I've been to a lot of drag shows, and I thought they're pretty fun. But I wouldn't think that they were appropriate for children. It's a highly sexualized environment, I would say.
No, and it's something that I don't understand, especially the people who are sort of like in denial about it. Like, oh, I'd rather have my kid hang out with a drag queen than go to church or something. Like they're at the weirdest point where they're really manipulated into thinking that this is just safer because of their personal feelings from their personal traumas. And not only that, but why drag queens?
I know.
Why is this important to child's development? Why do you have to teach a child acceptance, love, and kindness through a drag queen who is normally fully in the nightlife, fully into like sexual performances and probably doing drugs and alcohol, maybe not, but that is the lifestyle. That is where it's rooted in. So why drag queens? What happened to like clowns and puppet shows and do you know what I mean? Like the innocent stuff. Why are we mixing nightlife with children in the middle of the day? Why is that? I don't find that key to a child's development. It's not necessary to it's not a good tool to use children to teach children something. Like there are so many other ways to teach children acceptance. Why that?
No, there's definitely a reason. I have a philosophy about principalities. I'm reading this book called Return of the Gods, and there's an entire section on Ishtar, and it's fascinating because she even had iridescent rainbow eyes. She had flags. She had parades. Like
in June.
In June, yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
And it was the whole month also. And so I do think that it's definitely a religious war at its core. And so when you think, oh, well, this many people couldn't coordinate, but what it is it's happening on a soul and spirit level. And so people are enticed in ways that they're vulnerable in their spirit. And that's just, my opinion, of course, there's hard to prove anything in the spirit, but it is kind of interesting about the flags and how they literally lit up the White House, or they literally lit up, all of these, like Sydney has a brand new, welcome to Sydney, and it's all the, the flag, and it's like, this is my territory now. And I think that's what it is. It's a turf war.
Yeah, because the interesting thing about Ishtar as well, is she's also known as Anana, and she actually went against the gods and conquered many lands, and the LGBTQ of the rainbow is trying to take over everything. So interesting connection there too.
Yeah, and they say there was no gay agenda, but then they joke about, you know, coming after children, and they want all this representation all the time as often as possible. And so now there's this peer pressure for all these companies to cater to them, to be like, we do support you, don't worry, give us your money. Don't forget to give us your money because we like you. And it's just like, when did this happen? It's all just crept in to the point where it's like, now they look badly at you for not supporting it. Everything's turning inside out. It's flipping around. And the thing is, gay people are not a majority. They aren't. And trans people definitely aren't. They're a minority of a minority. And so to act like we all have to 100% cater to them all the time, it's just not right. You can't expect that from 100% of the population, especially in America, where the First Amendment is so prevalent, and we are supposed to be allowed to stand in our beliefs, in the things that we say and the things that we do, and our religion. Freedom of religion is included in the First Amendment. And that means you are personally allowed to discriminate to some extent how, you know, what you think about things. And that's America. And so, like, I mean, I consider this a gay relationship. I don't need to see a bunch of representation to be comfortable in my relationship, in my identity. It's not my entire personality. And that's what's so obnoxious about this new gay movement, is they just want to see it all the time. And like, let's be real, there's been some good gay films here and there. Like, it's not like there's none. But to carve out an entire space and to create this like segregation of like, join us or die, it's wrong.
Absolutely. And it's interesting too, because it wasn't until so Matt had said something about the polycystic thing. And I was such a tomboy. I mean, my dad was a Marine. I was the firstborn. I wanted to be a boy. I learned how to shoot guns, basketball, ski, water ski. I mean, I was his little like sports fanatic. And I literally loved it. I loved, like, even in high school, I'd be out playing basketball with the guys when the girls were inside watching a movie or something, and it just was the way I expressed myself. And I literally cried in third grade for, my mom sent me to school in a dress, and you would have thought I died. Like, my dad had to leave work and bring me jeans because I was so devastated. And it was very real to me. Like, I wanted to be a boy. And I know that some of that trauma is, I think my dad wanted a boy. And I think I felt that, because that's what girls are good at. We're very in tune. And I think that what's happening is all of, it's predominantly, I think, white women right now that are all like, doing a lot of the transitioning and stuff, at least according to that article. And I think about how in tune women are supposed to be for babies and to nurture. And I think that it's just a huge cry for everyone. And we're not seeing it as a huge cry. It's being twisted by principalities as it's something else, and you have to acknowledge this or you might die. And that's just crazy. But what I was going to say is, I ended up, when my very first surgery ever was a huge cyst on my ovary. So I never knew that. I would have never put that together, and it's probably very possible that that's all that happened with me. I mean, I don't know. I just thought that was amazing when you said that. Crazy.
Wow. It is fascinating how much hormones dictate the way we view the entire world too. And like you said, Jude, like getting your period at 11, that feels traumatic and it is scary. And being a young girl in today's world too, I think it's so scary because everyone tells you how awful it's going to be. There's not a lot of like, being a woman is great. And like, you have to learn to work with your hormones and manage your cycle. And there are things you can do that can make it better. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, you get your period every month and it sucks. And men get paid more and men only see you as a sexual object. And it's really like, and I know Abigail Schreier talked about this in her book, how the average age a child first sees porn is like 11 years old. And most porn is the domination and exploitation of women. And if you see that as a young girl, you'd be like, I don't want to be that. That's
Right.
absolutely not. Like, I don't want to be treated like that. I don't want to be seen like that. It's a terrifying thing. And that's even before a girl has their first kiss or holds hands or flirts with a guy, like, on average. And so I think that there is a rejection of womanhood before women even get to become full women because of how scary it is.
Yes.
And then also, like my mom was saying, like, a lot of parents are so afraid if their daughter doesn't want to wear a dress and wants to skateboard that she's going to be gay or trans or something. So they try and force her to be what they want her to be rather than letting a child be who they want to be. And then I think that it's so sad now because the girls that do fall into that now identify as non-binary because they're like, well, I can't be a girl that wants to shave my head and skateboard. Like, and I think that there is an aspect of sexism to a lot of non-binary. I don't know how to phrase this correct.
Conforming.
Yes, yeah. Like, it's like you don't have to. Like, you can wear what you want. You can express yourself the way you want. You can date who you want, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a gender. I think it's a little to assume that you're not that because you reject all the things that exemplify that, and in itself seems like to be a core issue that's often overlooked as well. If that makes sense.
I can attest to that because I was when I first discovered gender ideology, I had a similar mindset of like, oh, well, that makes sense because being a girl is hard and like men are failing us and nobody wants to fit in this box that women are put in. Da 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 da. So I like played with the idea of being non-binary for a while, but it's really dehumanizing. And I think it comes from a place of like self-loathing and self-rejection, because I was going through a lot at the time and I wasn't all that happy with my decisions and where my life was going. And like I said, I think it came from a place of just like not being comfortable with myself or happy with myself. And so when I came to terms with all that, I was like, no, I'm a woman, like girls have uteruses. These are facts. And trying to change those facts is actually terrifying. And it's so much easier for the 1% to see you as a nobody and not, you know what I mean? And can just completely erase you and out of sight, out of mind, because you don't even believe that you're anything.
Yeah. And we've got people now, if you look at some of these pronouns that are being used, as far as I'm aware, being called an it used to be a derogatory term.
Right.
And now people are identifying as an it. They're literally lowering themselves and dehumanizing themselves and thinking it's a good thing. And, you've got other people identifying as demons and some things that inanimate objects. I've seen that girl she's called the pronoun queen or whatever. She made a video identifying as a blanket. And the worst thing is they say all these things which are evident,
with a straight face. Yeah,
evident mental illness, but they're so proud of it.
They're like, yep. And here's the thing, like something to really consider is that we're living in a world of lies. We are bombarded by lies every single day. We are fed poisons through companies that don't care about our health. Everything is prepackaged, advertised, and shown to you in a certain way. So what are the long-term effects of having these hormones we don't need in our milk, eating these chemicals and these processed foods that aren't good for us, and taking medicine we don't necessarily need that damages our bodies in the long term?
Amen.
What are the repercussions of that as a society? We are in a very sick place right now. And so you have to step back and look at the big picture and admit that something's not right here when there are people glorifying and romanticizing, more, if anything, mental illness.
Absolutely. And like I said, I think the opposite is the fear of annihilation. And I think even that happens within the child. If I don't do these things, I don't exist because they've been so stripped of their humanity. And what they don't realize is what a beautiful treasure and gift and amazing being they are and how much power they have. But I think it's trained out of them through culture, through schools, through all kinds of things. Including religion. I think that religion has played a big part in a very unhealthy infiltration of those same principalities. You can see it operating.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would love to know, like, I'm definitely more Pollyanna than scare tactics. And I know you guys are like working on the front lines. I would love to hear some of the solutions or some of the things that you guys are hopeful towards as far as making an impact, whether it's through your Substacks or, Gays Against Groomers or whatever it is. I would love to hear some good things.
We're hoping to work on legislation to end the medicalization. Some states have already gone ahead of that. Utah's just banned it. So we're hoping to put together some legislation of our own. We've also just added to our website a whole resources page, because the therapists nowadays are being paid to just give an affirming approach. So we've got in contact with other organizations such as GenSpect, and we've put together a list so that parents, because children could be coming to them, so the parents can get them in contact with people who are going to give them the actual facts, not lie to them.
Yes.
Right.
Because, you know, that it is getting dangerous, and a study was released. They did a test between 2009 and 2017. And throughout those years, there has been a 4,400% increase in trans-identifying biological females and 1,000% increase in trans-identifying biological males. Now, the females, that high number, that links back to what we were talking about just now with the tomboys. Being a girl growing up is so difficult because, like you said, periods, you're going to find out that one day you're going to have to carry a baby. Now, that's an amazing gift, but when you're a kid, you don't want to think about that. And also, there's this standard being a girl. Oh, you've got to have makeup all the time. Your hair has to be all pretty. And a lot of girls do not get on with other girls because they find they gossip too much. So they relate more with the boys.
That was me.
And now it's got to the point where a girl turns around, oh, I like football, or I like the color blue. Did you know you're trans? No. That's not what this is. It is non-gender conforming. That's all it is. It's okay to like different things. And I've had parents reach out to me saying that their children have come home from school saying they're being bullied because they don't have pronouns. If you're cis, you're not cool anymore.
Right. This is why I'm a big proponent right now of homeschooling. But I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, it's just that everyone wants this like special label. They want to feel special, and kids are really vulnerable and prone to join in on trends, and because they also want attention, they want special treatment. They don't even fully understand what it means. Like some of these kids are coming home going, I just learned I'm trans today, and they're like, and their parents are like, what does that even mean? And they're like, I don't know. Like, what is happening in the education system?
Well, that's, I believe, a huge issue. That's why I literally homeschooled both my kids until 8th grade, and then they wanted to go experience school. But people used to ask me, you know, do you think that that's the best route? And I was like, no, I think that a parent's responsible for supplementing an education no matter where they go, whether they're homeschooled or at school. I think that the main things have to be taught by the parent. And now I 100% would say pull your kids. And I know that's very counter, and I know that makes people angry. I also think that a lot of these moms are the problem. They are like excited, and it's like a feather in their cap if they have
like,
someone.
I have trans kids.
And it's interesting because there was a doctor that commented on something that I had written on Twitter, and he said, you know, with the lack of dendrites in the brain because of all of, like you were saying earlier, the contaminants and all of the different things that are being ingested and injected or whatever, he said that when the dendrites are lacking, then people have to have massive excitement to feel alive. Think about how dangerous that is. Like I always tell Carly, I want to bring boring back.
I get that because every day it's something, and people are looking for that dopamine fix. They're looking for the thrill, and people's attention spans are super short. And it's just like, why aren't we asking how this happened? And I mean, it should be obvious to most of us, but some people genuinely don't understand how these little micro interactions are affecting them in the long term. You know, from their choices to what they choose to eat, and where they're shopping, and where they go to the doctor, and what kind of medications they take, and how it all interacts. And it's just like, we need to be honest as a society that we're in a dark place, because the institutions in charge of running this place don't care about us.
Look at the homelessness. It's the same thing. It's just an indicator of what a bad job we're all doing. I mean, it really is a reflection on all of us. And then Matt, I was curious too, as far as the opposition, is it mostly just loud and in your face? Or is it actually damaging in the way that they operate? Like, are they cutting you guys off at your knees in a lot of ways that you're surprised, if that makes sense? Do you see what I'm asking?
Yeah, I see what you're answering. They've shut down our organization a few times, so they are coordinating in that way to silence us completely. But honestly, a lot of it is just verbal abuse.
Yeah.
But there's no limit to how far they will go with that. I mean, they call me transphobic all the time. They tell me I hate myself. They told me if the Holocaust was going on right now, I would have shipped off my own people. That there's nothing they won't say, like no matter how disgusting it is. And at first, I'm going to be honest with you, that there's been a few times when I first started going viral for speaking out, there were a few times where I just wanted to stop talking because it was constant. They were like really death threats. They were really coming for me. And then I got to the point where I was thinking, no, like this isn't about me. The kids need a voice because they are voiceless. They don't know what's happening. They go to school. They think they're learning something. They're being plugged with lies.
Yeah.
And
they need more references.
People, like a lot of people reach out to me and they say, thank you for speaking up because I'm too scared to. And I wish they'd just understand this isn't about us anymore. This is about the children. No matter what they say, the children are the future. When we're dead and gone, they're going to be the one lighting the way. And right now they're being confused. There is no hope for the future right now if they're learning this garbage. You know, biology matters. And I struggled with it at first as well, because as a trans person, I was the kind who never really associated with LGBTQ. I didn't understand why they made it their whole persona. For me, it was just something I was, but it wasn't my personality, you know? And so I just wanted to live my life. And now I'm having to publicly declare all the time that I'm a biological female, because it's important, because children need to know the truth or they're never going to understand.
It's crazy too, because you didn't choose to be outed. That was thrust upon you, which is really crappy. It's nicer when you get to make that decision and step into it with full power. But I do admire the way you're handling it. I will say, if I had any advice for anyone that's afraid to speak up, the reason I ask Matt that question is because in my experience, I've been here almost 58 years, that the evil is so loud and so incessant and it's so persistent. But if you can hold your faith in your truth, it doesn't have the power. And I heard a pastor's wife once say it was, the devil is a mouse with a megaphone. And I want people to hear that. I have been threatened. I have been, like, and it wasn't even about this, it was about trafficking stuff, there's so much out there that's after the children in every different way. And to me, that's the one I'm willing to go ahead, be the sacrifice, whatever. I refuse to be afraid, and I am going to stand in this truth, and God decides what happens to me, not anyone else. And it's a very empowering feeling. And that's why I love that you really did kind of co-sign on my belief that it was more of this obnoxious, evil rhetoric that you had to process and go, wait, that's not true. I don't validate that in my heart. And so I'm not going to co-sign with this, and I'm going to keep moving forward.
It's true. And honestly, you'll find that they all have the exact same points they want to make. At first, it used to bother me, but now it feels like they copy and paste the comments, because I'll be like, oh, look, the billionth person to tell me this. And it just, you get to the point where it's just boring. You kind of want something fresh,
It's like, is that all you got? Is that it? Because I've heard that before.
I used to have a friend, and he was Italian, and he was like a real popular football player, and like he would move a lot, and he's like, I just moved to this new school, and this kid came at me with some comment, and I looked at him and I was like, dude, I'm Italian. My mom says meaner things to me than that. You're gonna have to bring it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's the thing. A lot of us that are in this in-between space, like Matt and I, we've been through it. We've been ridiculed. We've been bullied. We've been emotionally abused. We've been manipulated. Like, we get it. And so now we're in this place where people want to be like, oh, you're hateful, and you're Nazis, you're far right, you're whatever, blah, 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 whatever. We've heard it all. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you think if that's your opinion, because it's incorrect. And you're clearly not willing to take the time to listen to someone who thinks differently than you. You just want this like hive mind echo chamber mentality so you feel safe. And then you remember that other people exist and you're like, boo, it's just how selfish can you be?
One of my favorite hate comments I get, it makes me laugh every time because it just literally makes no sense. They tell me that because I actually look like a man, I'm not allowed to speak for the trans community. And I'm like, excuse me, I thought being trans was...
I was so shocked when I found out. And I thought and I'm going to probably say this wrong because I don't know how to say it other than just the way it feels in my heart. But I was like, gosh, she's gorgeous. How could you have been a girl? And like, you have the coolest voice. And I was watching your video and I loved your hair. And I was like, I'm just shocked. And so I could see where they might have a little...
I was there. She did say that. She was like, he's so gorgeous.
No, it's funny. When we did America Fest, Jamie and Sasha just were staring at me one day and I was like, what? And they were like, you're so handsome. How are you a woman? And I'm like, I don't know. Some people don't believe me. I've been accused of being a straight white male, and I said, I've dreamed of that since I was a little girl.
It's just silly. At one point you have to laugh because it's like you obviously don't know me, you obviously don't want to, and that's your problem.
Oh, and they're missing out so much because I love it. I literally have to look for you on Twitter. You don't come up. I have to I have to search you, and then I'm like, I read like 10 of them, so I'm like. Yeah. I love the way you remind me actually of my daughter as far as the way that you are so good at presenting information. It's awesome.
You are.
Thanks.
She helps me with my videos because I go to her about my feelings about all this stuff and I'm really fired up and she goes, well, you can't say it like that.
I'm just like, honey, no, I'm gonna edit that. I'm sorry.
You guys could do some funny videos though, spoofing that.
It would get censored immediately, even for joking about it.
The videos that get put out have a lot of tweaking because I'm so angry.
Parody.
I get so mad about all of it.
A lot of people don't understand that, like, we're in this position, we're with Gays Against Groomers because we care about the truth. And like the truth is the greatest gift you can really give to people because it makes room for trust. And if we don't have that, then we're just a society of lies, deceivers, and enablers. And that's it. We're done. We're doomed.
I do believe we're evolving as a people, and I do see in the future there'll be a time where people will be like, wow, your grandma was alive during that time and it was like crazy back, like people lied all the time, like almost nobody told the truth, and now everyone, I do believe we evolve. I think that it's kind of like somebody like Matt goes through what he goes through, but then he takes all that energy and pushes it back the other direction. And I do know that it may not be in our timing, but it will happen. I do believe that there's so many beautiful humans, and I do believe they're afraid to speak. And I want them to understand that it really is a mouse with a megaphone. And it's also a very coordinated effort. I mean, there's actually people paid to go and find these specific things and just attack. And so if you think and you go, okay, well, a certain percentage of this isn't real anyway. It's somebody, keyboard warrior.
Right.
They need to stop listening to this cult as well, because that's what it is. The cult turns around and says, if you're not a member of the LGBTQ, blah, 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 whatever it is now, community, that you're not allowed to speak on these topics. And that's not true, because a lot of these parents have kids who are in school and they're seeing this happening. Protecting children should be something everybody universally comes together on.
It's not a political issue.
Exactly, it's not, and it's disgusting that it's being seen like that, but it's also really sad because it shows that society doesn't know what it means to look out for kids anymore.
No, they don't. And the issues we're facing in Gays Against Groomers is people criticize our members for having different political beliefs, and they think that's causing division. I'm like, people are allowed to have opinions.
But honestly, to me, that's even more beautiful. There's people locking arms for truth, and that's the thing about truth, is it does become a friend. The more you engage in truth, the kinder it is to you, and the more your eyes open. I have a question about so I know, Jude, you didn't have any problem speaking up. You'd already gotten to that point. Matt, you kind of had it thrust upon you. Were you already speaking up some, or was that the pivotal moment?
I was speaking out about corruption in the government. That's what I was speaking up about. But I do the odd live, but I used to literally get the shakes. And the person who doxed me, I was doing a podcast with him, and without going, I don't want to give him too much.
He was supposed to be a friend.
He was supposed to be a friend, and I hadn't even told him about me either, because I just didn't want people knowing. I wanted to be known for the research I was putting out, not for the fact that I was this trans person.
Yeah.
And so one day I just get sent footage of this dude outing me on a live. And I'm going to be honest, I had a mental breakdown. I was crying my eyes out. I was scared because obviously in the truth community, people know about the agenda, like the background one, the Hollywood trans agenda, because it is real. It is very evident. And I was like, how are people going to take me now they find out I'm trans? And I tried to make a video, couldn't bring myself to press record. I was having a meltdown. So in the end, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go live. And I burst out crying, and I was like, guys, I'm trans. And it didn't go how I thought it was going to go. I thought I was going to get so much hate. I instead got so much love. And Bobby Source sent me a load of voice clips, right? And he melted my heart, because he said to me, he was like, I know right now you're feeling like this is like the end of the world for you, but what this idiot has done, he was like, you're about to find out, this is going to be your biggest blessing. I think God's using you with this.
Yes.
And that
was your anointing, and you're ordained. Yeah.
And then when the comments started flooding in, I was like, well, maybe that's right. And so like, I went kind of back to doing what I was doing. And then the stuff with Rachel Levine started happening, all of this empowering trans kids. And I was so nervous, but like I'd been working on my faith with the Lord a lot, and God had been putting on my heart for a while. He was like, look, I want you to start speaking your truth, not the truth, your truth, because it's really important. Then the Rachel Levine thing happened, and I can't explain the rage I was feeling, and I just pressed record. I wasn't thinking. And as soon as I posted it, I felt this like nerves, and I kind of felt like God was like, just watch this. And the video blew up like crazy. Gays Against Groomers approached me, and I was the first trans member.
Wow, that's so crazy.
I didn't know this. This is awesome. I didn't know this.
That's such a good story.
I wouldn't have been able to speak up if I didn't have God.
So truth was already your thing, but you just hadn't. I believe so much in people having private lives, right? I'm happy to tell people I got divorced. I'm happy to tell basics, but I don't want to tell details about, the ins and outs of it. Right. Because I respect my family, and so I completely get it. But now that you've used your voice, because I feel like this is probably the most important piece. Like, as we were talking, just seeing the intimidation and seeing how you went through these little curves, and every time came back up, like boosting like a little rocket. But if you were giving anyone advice about telling their truth, what would you say as far as how real the fear is?
I would say that even though that everyone's got that little voice in the head that lives in anxiety, and always, whenever you're close to doing something you're supposed to do, it wants to talk you out of it. And that's another thing the devil does. He doesn't just use a megaphone. He likes to get into your subconscious too. And all I will say is, for every time something tells you no when it comes to speaking your truth and being who you really are, give yourself another reason to say yes even more, because you will see that if they really don't want you talking, there's a reason for that. It's because you're powerful. Your truth is powerful, and right now the kids need it more than ever, and so do the parents, because a lot of the parents are so afraid right now. And this is a spiritual war. It really is. And there's so many signs of it. There's never been so much division in the world. There's never been so much hate as there is right now, and so evidently. And that is why that's even more reason to be a light in this darkness, because there are more good people than bad. And the more the more good people who fight for that light, the more others will join
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And then, Jude, I love that you were staying on TikTok because you wanted to have access to the kids. And I think that's
Yeah.
it's the only person that I'm like, yes, she needs to stay on TikTok.
Yeah, it's just like I got an account suspended in I
Oh,
think December, like right before AmFest, which was so frustrating to have to start over because I was so careful with that other account. I don't lose accounts like crazy, like a lot of people just immediately like boom, boom,
Right.
boom. They're on like Instagram 7, 8, 9.
Mhm.
I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to preserve these accounts. I'm going to say what I need to say in this way that I think that'll, get me under the
Right.
radar. And I still lost an account in December. So then I was like,
Wow.
okay, I got to start over because it's just such a cesspool. But the more people need to hear more perspectives, they need that reference, they need to see that it's not all just the same stuff. So I was like, I literally have to do this. Like, I don't, it's a spiritual war and it's exhausting, but you have to keep at it because if you can speak out, you could be saving so many people without even knowing it.
One person is enough. And that's why I tell people it doesn't matter how big your channel is. If one person listens and they're affected by it, that's why like all the voices matter. It's like that Cindy Lou Who thing, like, the one that, or it wasn't, what is
Horton
it?
Hears a Who.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that one little voice made all the difference. And
Right.
I love that concept. It's so very true. Carlisle, what about you? Because you got your voice. When we first started doing Let Me Ask My Mom, you were a little more reserved. And then all of a sudden you were like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. What would you tell people?
I think I was especially reserved because I have friends from all different backgrounds, political beliefs, all that. And this was like, we were starting it like right when everything was still shut down for COVID. And I think that everything was like so tedious. If you said something even like slightly disagreeing with what was going on, it was like a huge deal. They would call you like, they'd call you like a
Everyone's
grandma killer or something.
Yeah.
No, like it was. And so, honestly, I don't really know what, it wasn't like a specific thing changed. And I just think it was like, the truth became so evident to me that I was tired of waiting for people to catch up. Cause I was like, oh, they just need some time. Like they're going to see what's going on if we just give them a little longer. And I'm like, okay, that's not going to happen. So you just got to say what you believe. And then I got super into reading. I don't know what was the first person I found, but I watched an interview with a detransitioner. It was one of the girls that had top surgery really young. And then I started watching a lot of those interviews. And then that was like so crazy to me because I was not tapped into that side of the world at all, or what was and this was like a year and a half ago, I would say. I read Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, and I was like so shocked that any of this was happening. And then I feel like since then it has blown up. Like so many more detransitioners have come out and stuff like that. And then so I felt so passionate about that personally because I feel so hard for young girls who are going through it, and like a lot of those young girl stories who were autistic and they were never diagnosed and like just different, like they were just different girls who were kind of being used as science experiments. And I feel like that was like the breaking straw for me. Like you said, it was like, it's fine. Like if you're putting adults in danger, they're consenting adults, but like if you were going to put a child in danger, like someone who has to speak up for them. And the more people know, and when we did a show about it, and the more I talk about it to random people come to me all the time saying, my granddaughter's going through this, or my niece is going through this. Like it's becoming more and more prevalent every time you bring it up. And I feel like when you first started talking about it a few years ago, no one knew what they're like, okay, so people transition and then they go back. Like, how does that work? Like, it was like hard to process. And then now I feel like it's more prevalent, but I think that it was the children thing that really made me change my mind, even in response to COVID stuff, because they were the ones who were kind of sacrificed for everyone else. Like they're still so behind in schooling and development, and kids can't speak because they only saw people in masks. So I think it was like the realization of that was like the breaking point for me.
And has your backlash been bad?
No, I mean, I don't have a following or anything.
Well, I'm just curious because I really want people to understand that I think it sounds more scary than it actually is. And to be honest, I find it very fulfilling, and it seems as though you guys do as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of talking about this the other day. Like I made a tweet because I was like, the truth is really the only thing that matters. And I don't care if I'm putting my life at risk, you know, but there are people out there who are like scared to lose their jobs. They're scared to put their loved ones in danger. It's just too much for them to handle. So they need people like us who, you know, I guess have less to lose, if you want to put it that way. But I in my opinion, everyone should be putting the truth above everything, because we're really losing sight of it.
Yeah, that's so good. I was also going to make sure that I covered this, and it was, did you guys see the video where it shows the actual animated surgery of what it is for a man to become a woman surgically? There's a video that was going around Twitter that it was an animated, but it was, I think everyone needs to see that, because I think it sounds, you're so removed from the reality of it that to see that video, and because it's animated, it's not so, you know, crazy offensive or anything like that, but it really is detailed. Like, it's a long process, and they do a lot of different things, and it just brings home, you know, the seriousness of that decision. And I think it would probably be a good tool for you guys. Aw.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. My cat was over here earlier.
Yeah,
we
their
had the door
name?
shut, but they were trying to beat the door down.
Yeah.
So.
What's their pronouns?
Cats hate closed doors. Like, it doesn't matter what, if the door shuts, they're like, what's going on?
Get really
They get mad. But anyway, there's so much that can go wrong in these surgeries, and I think the opposite surgery, the female to male, is like even more horrific. And like, people really need to understand like what exactly they're doing, and the fact that that is permanent. You can't get that back. They use skin from other parts of your body, and it never looks the same, and it doesn't look right when it's finished. Let's be honest, it just doesn't. And you know, then there's a matter of function. A lot of people lose function, and then the harsh reality of a man becoming a woman is they have to like constantly use a tool to like dilate, and because it's an open wound, their body wants to heal it. That's why biology matters so much. That's why the facts matter so much. We can't be delusional just because a couple of these surgeries went well because they went to a really good doctor and they're like, well, I'm fine, so that means it's good for everybody. No, not true. Just not.
Oh, Mom, you're muted.
That's one of the things I believe, that the conversation has to happen, and it's uncomfortable. And that was some of the, I highly recommend, Carly, you put that, anyone that was in the chat, if you could, or did you put it in there?
Did I put what?
The link to, you were going to put the link to that free speech article.
Yeah, I did. It didn't like hyperlink. It's just.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why.
It's an incredible article, and I'm so glad Carlisle sent it to me, because there were so many things besides, you know, the annihilation option, or the transphobe, you know, calling someone transphobe, you know, and then what was the other one? Doctors privately recognize false self-diagnosis and manifestation of social contagion. They even acknowledge that suicide has an element of social contagion. But when I said the clusters of girls streaming into our service look as if their gender issues might be a manifestation of social contagions, the doctors said gender identity reflected something innate. And
eating disorders can be social contagion as well.
When she questioned.
Absolutely.
And I just thought, wow, that's just so powerful, like, and so wrong. And so I love what both of you are doing. Thank you so much for coming. Is there anything that you guys wanted to share about what's going on right now, or ways that people can help you guys, or anything like that before we get off?
Oh yeah, if you're interested in supporting Gays Against Groomers, the organization we're a part of, you can go to gaysagainstgroomers.com/donate. There's also a merch shop. We've had to change our vendors several times because they keep shutting us down. They don't want to support the movement at all. So we've had to change shops a few times, but it is there. It's there again. We've got one. And yeah, we're headed towards legislation. Matt and I are going to be speaking at a school board meeting on Monday in Phoenix.
Wow.
So we've got some plans definitely in the works. But yeah, again, if you want to support the organization, you can go to their website, and there's a whole page of resources for parents and kids to check out if you're needing that alternative source.
And also, if anyone wants to volunteer, you can sign up there as well. We're about to have our recruitment week. So if there's any LGBT voices who want to get loud, we'd love to hear from you.
And so what would they be doing? Tell me what their volunteer, their duties would be.
Wherever their skill set will fit.
Chapter leaders, writers, content creators, whatever it is that you've got, just message us and let us know.
Yeah, honestly, like whatever skill set you have, we could probably make it work. We've got a blog, we've got writers, we've got, there's the people that are doing research. We were looking for doctors and therapists who have the alternative, that don't feel like they want to push this stuff anymore, and that are tired of the peer pressure and just the entire movement becoming hijacked because the pedophiles have put their foot in the door. They're using this movement. Absolutely. They've hijacked it. There's something very wrong going on, and we need to admit it. The truth is the most important thing. If we don't have that, we're just going to crumble as a society.
Yes. And then is it growing? I mean, is Gays Against Groomers growing at a rate that you guys are happy with?
Every day.
We've now got chapters in the UK, Canada, Japan. We might have a chapter from there as well. Yeah. So we are growing, and we hope to be everywhere soon, but we also hope that we don't have to exist much longer. We're hoping that we can end all of this.
That's what I'm talking about. Breakaway societies. Let's go.
Ideally, we achieve our goal of making the medicalization, sexualization, and indoctrination of children federally illegal.
Yes.
And giving
and
this
how brain. I mean, that seems like you don't have to have very many brain cells to agree with that.
No, it's not a political issue. This is not right or left. This is not about what our members believe politically. This isn't a political issue. It's the protection of children, of future generations. And if you're really against that, and you just want to judge us from how you see us, from how the media is portraying us, that's your fault.
Yeah. And one of the things I would say is I hated the story of Abraham sacrificing his child in the Bible. I thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And why would God do that? And these times have brought that to bear, because what's happening is we're being coerced to not bring our child to the altar of truth. And what we don't realize is it's not a sacrifice of your child. It's you standing in truth against evil, and how it all works out in the end if you're willing to do that. And so now I actually like that story and understand the fear that parents have because they don't want to put their child on the altar. And what nutty parent would do that? But somebody that has faith that truth is powerful enough. And if enough of us were willing to go forward and care about all the children, not just the ones that we're going to put on the altar, but all the ones that are being thrown on the altar by Ishtar, then we have a totally different situation. And I think that is one of the most powerful things that we could get across, is to get people to lock arms, and we are going to hold the line for other people's children, not just our children.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for coming. Carly, you have any last questions for them at all?
One last question would be, if you guys had a parent come to you for advice to how they would handle a child that was questioning their gender identity, what would be, and let's say it's someone that doesn't have access to high quality therapy, what would be like just a few things that you would say that would be helpful?
Honestly, I would just tell them to do what my parents did. allow your child to express yourself, but explain to them that there are risks with this. And here's the thing, you know, if an adult, if they want to transition, they're going to transition.
Yeah.
But a child could make a mistake. So explain to them, look, it's okay to cut your hair short, or vice versa. You know, it's okay to wear what you want, but that leaves them the room to, if they do grow out of it, they can, and they haven't made any permanent decisions that they could regret for the rest of their life. Just come from a place of love.
Yeah. And my addition to that would be to figure out why your child is confused. Where is this coming from? Do they have friends that are doing this? Do they have a teacher that's telling them this is a great idea? Where is it coming from? What are they doing on social media? What kind of stuff are they looking at? Like, pay attention to what they're consuming if you can, because a lot of parents are very hands off. They go to work, their kids goes to school. How is school? Fine, great, okay. And they have no idea what's going on. So that's the thing, is you're going to really have to start to investigate and be like, where is this coming from? Because that's what a therapist is going to do. So if you try to, you know, if you can't afford that work, you're going to have to do it yourself, because it's a lot of it is influence.
Do you know of any good YouTube channels that could support this, as far as you know, parents or anyone that's talking about it other than y'all?
We don't really do YouTube anymore.
Necessarily YouTube, but if people are on Instagram, I highly recommend they check out Pamela Garfield, the Truthful Therapist. She is absolutely amazing. She's got a website as well where she has courses that will help parents be truthful with their kids about this. All of the details, and she's got lots of highlights on her page as well. On Instagram, she is the Truthful Therapist, and she is amazing.
Oh,
awesome.
Thank you. I'm so glad we discovered that. That was a good thing to end on. Thank you both so much. And I'm out here totally rooting for you guys, and think you're both amazing. And thank you for all you do. Literally, it's ripples like worldwide, and it's just awesome.
Thanks for having
us.
Yeah. And thanks everybody for joining us. I'll be back again tomorrow with Amanda Bies from South Africa. We'll see you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.